So neither of us watched any isekais from this season, even though there was 20 of them. So
I sure did not.
Well, instead we're saving the most important anime for first here, which would be Kancolle Season 2!
Everyone thought that we were gonna leave it behind in the darkness.
Because we did on accident.
Because we forgot, but also wasn't done then either, so...
If you look at the last ETP episode, it looks like I left it out as a joke, but I genuinely forgot it existed. You should definitely explain how amazing the schedule of these episodes is.
Well, I mean... So it started on November 4th, 2022, so yeah, that's like right... what was that? That was like it was like 4 weeks into the fall 2022 season. Because it was 8 episodes, right? The idea was they wait 4 weeks, and then they start... But then the end date, well, somehow the end date is March 25th, 2023, which, going by the calendar, was like 9 days ago, so...
But it was so funny. Every single episode, I would get used to you posting in Discord, like, they delayed it by another month, and I'm like,
yeah,
how many times can these episodes get delayed? But it was like every month they would delay it for another month, and we thought that the last episode was going to come out in like 2027.
Yeah.
I was like, this last episode's never going to fucking come out.
Yeah, every episode, like after like the first 3, it was like a 2 to 4 week delay. And at some point, they had to change time slots. So this shit had to change time slots because it took too long and lost its time slot.
Time zones because of how long it was taking. And the funnier part is, just from my secondhand experience, because I obviously did not watch this, but I would hear you talk about it and be like, oh, they delayed it, and then once the episodes came out, I was like, oh, they must have like polished it up, and you'd be like, wow, more shitty CG battles.
Oh,
and I'm like,
God.
They did nothing. I'm like, why is this being delayed for months and months? And I kept making a joke that they were using like an ancient computer to render the CG for it, and it takes like a month to render it.
Truly, out of all the studios right now, Studio NG is like truly one of the most terrible, like trash studios there is. And they were doing 3, like when Kancolle started, that was the same, of course, that was fall 2022, so that was the same season as Sarasa Feed Anime, whatever the fuck, or Alchemist, I don't remember that shit's name. First season was produced by Diamedia years and years back.
Oh, remember them?
Yeah, who've just done a plethora of shit. I mean, they did both of the seasons of Squid Girl. That's like something good they did at least, but...
Something about the phrasing plethora of shit is really sticking with me here.
And like the first season of Kancolle was like a masterpiece either, but it was fun enough that I remember things about it, and they had like characters who with very like strong personalities, like Congo, right? Like the big thing was like they also tried to have like semi-serious like moments, which felt kind of like out of place because they felt like they were trying too much to like mix these like lighthearted, like fun, like silly ass character shit with like super serious like battles and like people dying, and it's like, okay, like I feel like you need to go with one or the other. So of course this like second season is supposed to be like, okay, we've decided we're gonna do a serious story, no bullshit, no antics, and it's only gonna be 8 episodes long, so we're not dragging this bad boy out. It's just fucking boring. It is just boring as shit. Like I don't know what else to say. I mean, I do know.
I was just about to say, but... I'm like, is this what the Kancolle fans like?
I don't think so.
Like,
no, I don't think so. Like I don't understand.
I think given the choice between just getting like a cutesy, like just like do goofy shit and everyone will love it.
You cannot act like you have to be like super serious about naval bullshit. Like you got Shimakaze in your game. Like come on, man.
You can only be so respectful when you have anime girls like shooting fucking lasers and missiles and shit at each other.
They've cramped a lot of stuff into this 8 episodes. Like there's a lot going on. Like you have like a rotating cast of characters. Like almost none of the characters that are in the first 3 episodes are in the like episodes after that. everyone in Kancolle season 2, no one acts like they want to be in the same room with each other. Like, the way they talk to each other is, like, incredibly awkward and disjointed. Someone will say something, and then there will be, like, this 3 seconds of silence, and then the other person will finally say something. There is so much, like, dead air, like, visually in this anime, where just people are just standing there and not saying anything or doing anything.
It's realistic. It's like the boats, they have to, like, just keep moving forward, and it takes a long time to communicate from boat to boat in real life.
So true. And there's just this running theme of it looking like trash, of it being written like crap. It's ugly. The CG is terrible. All the battles look like trash. The fucking enemies don't even have the same frame rate as everyone else.
And what makes Kancolle season 2 even weirder is just the fact that it's like it's finishing in like 2023. It's like, think of the fucking popular shows. Like, what would people talk about? Fucking like Chainsaw Man, JoJo, Hunter x Hunter. They're like, people do not want like serious nothing show like right now.
It's like, it's not even really historically accurate, right? Because, like, I get it. In Kancolle, they're, like, reliving their lives, in a sense. So, like, it's the fan service of, like, oh my god, Shigure's doing Lake Gulf. She was actually in that battle in real life as an actual ship. And it's like, wow, okay, cool.
It's not enough to be a Kancolle primary. You also have to be, like, a World War II naval battle primary to enjoy this anime. But what about that tear-jerking credit sequence?
The obituaries! The fucking obituaries with the pictures of the Kanmusu girls. Just, like, being happy and alive. And it's like...
If you didn't cry watching that, are you
I'm
even
sorry,
a Kancolle fan?
laughed.
I mean, like, come on.
It was so absurd to me. Like, I just, like, as soon as I registered what they were doing... Like, literally the only part of the anime that, like, truly surprised me was when Iowa showed up in the very last episode. They need to have that, like, source, like, crashing, and it just, like, repeats the same 2 frames over and over again.
Oh my god. Blue Archive bros, cross your fucking fingers. If it's bad, I will literally delete my Blue Archive account. I will destroy all of the Blue Archive fan art I have saved.
Yeah, there's so much on the line.
I will erase all of my memories of Blue Archive. So last season, we had Akiba Maid Senso, and then even before that, what did they do?
Preepy Kome.
Yeah, so PA Works has been on a goddamn roll. They had that. They had Akiba Maid Senso, which it was high up on both of our like end of the list, like best anime of the season. They did it again. People like Buddy Daddies, even though the name is like really weird to say out loud.
Buddy Daddies, yeah.
Thankfully, I did watch a few episodes of this. I didn't go through the whole thing, but I know enough to get like the idea that we have these 2 for-hire special agent dudes, and then this like 4-year-old kid ends up just stumbling into their guns and bullet action and is now just in their life, and they have to take care of this little kid while also doing these extremely dangerous missions. It's very goofy on paper. This is one of those anime where you look at the description and you look at the idea and the name and everything, and you're like, this sounds fucking stupid. But something about PA Works, I mean, you can say the same thing about Akiba Maid Senso. They can make something as stupid as they want, but they know how to pull it all together into something that actually works. And they did it again, at least from what I can gather from the episodes I saw. It seemed like they knew what they were doing. Like they already had like ideas building up from the beginning. I'm like, okay, they're doing something here.
And, you know, that first episode, you know, it had enough there for me to be like, you know what, this concept is interesting. They're taking it in an interesting direction. It's got some interesting style to it. It's got good soundtrack. Not as out there as Akiba Maid Senso in terms of concept, but definitely still like a very like a wackier concept. When this thing started airing, like everyone was quick to be like, all right, how much are they ripping off Spy X Family?
The way they do their take on the little girl is different, because in Buddy Daddies this is just like straight up like a 4-year-old
she
kid
is like
who's just like wandering
she's like
around.
very much a child, like that's
There's no strings attached. They have to take care of this like wacky hyper little toddler who just keeps getting into shit.
Anya is like a somewhat self-sufficient little like gremlin who also has like the ability to read people's thoughts, so she's sort of like in a completely different spectrum than just like a normal ass like child, which is what Miri is. The only like obviously the big comparison point is, yeah, like both of them have dangerous jobs, and that's like, you know, Spy X Family and Buddy Daddies technically have that in common, because you know, Lloyd's is a spy and Yor is an assassin, and of course in Buddy Daddies both of them are kind of like, they're like hitmen type for hire guys who work for an organization that do like assassinations and like recon and intel and you know, that kind of business. So they're in the underworld, right? Like they're in that like sort of like same spectrum. So of course there's like all these like motif like points that are similar, but the actual like premise and how it presents itself is much different.
So the main three characters, but like the little kid's fun. You have the brooding guy with the dark past,
Ray, yep.
who has to also deal with like this little kid who's just like all sunshine and rainbows. And you got Kazuki, who's like a lot more upbeat by comparison.
Yeah, Kazuki and Ray are definitely like very much that like opposites duo. Where you got Kazuki's like the more upbeat, the more energetic, kind of like suave, smooth talker guy, and then you've got Ray, who's very much the hitman. You know, he's soft spoken, quiet, calculating. You know, very very to the point. And they have very similar upbringings in the sense where they both don't really have childhoods. Kazuki doesn't even remember his parents, and Ray's parents, I mean, he's kind of like the heir to a criminal organization, so he doesn't really have a normal parenting experience. And then you got Miri, who's like, somehow she turns out normal, right? She's just a normal ass kid,
despite everything.
I like the way, especially how they play her. They very much have her act just very like a child. Like,
she's so oblivious to the outside world. It does not matter how many bullets or anything. She's just like, oh, fun noises. It's like, it's so cartoony. It's funny.
Yeah, she can't even comprehend the darkness, right? Yeah, she's just her outlook is just too bright, too shining. But yeah, it's interesting because like Miri's like, you know, her dad is like a shithead, like underworld exec who she's basically like a bastard child of this guy, and her mom, who's, you know, she's like a singer, like a lounge singer or something. Ray and Kazuki just like completely fucking execute Miri's dad just like on the spot. Then they kind of have to take her in the meantime when they try to figure out what they're gonna do with her, and then of course that spirals kind of into our entire show here with the two of them, yeah, trying to sort of parent her in a sense while also doing their dangerous underworld job. And naturally, those two sides come into conflict throughout the show. Miri is kind of like the path to like a normal life, right? Like a normal family life, because Kazuki and Ray never really had a family at all. So they sort of have like a very common trait where the three of them sort of come together in that way. And of course, that Ray and Kazuki, they try to have these worlds coexist, but as it goes on, they kind of get drawn more towards the light, but they're still like in the darkness of the underworld and like what they do for their jobs, and especially in Ray's case, since like his entire like existence is being in this like criminal organization and being like the son of this guy who runs this whole thing. It does a good job of balancing the actiony stuff with the like Miri antics and like the actual just like like more emotional like bonding type stuff. the way it sort of concludes, I wasn't sure how they were going to do it. It becomes increasingly obvious that like they can't maintain this like family life and keep doing what they're doing, because like throughout the show it starts getting harder. Like Rei and Kazuki start like messing up jobs or not being able to do them fast enough because they have less time in the day because they have to take care of Miri now too, and they're trying to like live this double life, but it's not working. They can't have these things coexist. It could have used maybe one more episode. Out of all like the like very crammed last episodes I've seen, it definitely wasn't like too egregious, but they definitely had to cover a lot and conclude a lot of things in one episode. It definitely tries to get everything in the last moment, and it lands its footing well enough, and the stuff in between is enjoyable, and I like the characters. It's very colorful, and it has like a unique spin on what it's trying to do. So I definitely liked it. It wasn't as sharply written as Akiba Maid Senso, but definitely still a worthy, interesting original production from PA Works. It's definitely a reason people enjoyed it and liked it. I liked it. I definitely think it was,
especially for this season's standards.
Yeah, this is a breath of fresh air for sure in this season. This is like what you would want from a season this like homogenized and stuffed with crap. Is just like something like this that's a little bit outside the mold, and it's good.
It's time for everybody's only tomboy adjacent anime, Tomo-chan.
Tomo-chan. It's definitely a rom-com. The comedy is definitely very like slapsticky, a lot of physical.
Tomo-chan is a martial arts expert, so our protagonist gets wailed on.
Tomo-chan, I feel like as far as an adaptation goes, I guess this is probably as good as it was going to get. It does. There's a lot of like key moments in the anime that I feel like, key moments in the manga that I feel like the anime translates pretty well to, and it does hit a lot of the beats, especially like the very memorable ones, with some finesse. Good animation, good directing, good storyboarding. Good use of music and atmosphere. Misuzu is like a very, very stoic, kind of emotionless at times. She's kind of a hard ass. Then you got Carol, who's like the bubbly foreigner, but she's also conniving in a sense, which is why her dynamic with Misuzu is so good, because they're both smart in their own ways, and they both operate in these like, they're almost like playing mind games with each other sometimes in that respect, but they have a very good chemistry, and they provide a lot of the entertainment. They cover the whole manga in this 13 episodes. Tomo-chan's like progression as a romance is like pretty decent, and it does a good job of tending to its side characters too. There are some gags where I think they really hit, and like sometimes they were even like better than I remember them being in the manga. And then there was just other times where it's just like it's very basic in the way it presents itself. Obviously, like the animation's not like particularly fantastic or anything. It's like very serviceable.
The next one we got is another one I didn't watch. I only like skimmed through an episode or two of it. Mou Ippon, or as it's translated in English, for some reason, Ippon again. It's a judo anime, yeah.
It is. Mou Ippon is.
It's a judo slice
girls
of life.
Doing judo.
But you stuck with it to the end.
It's definitely one of those like sportsy type anime in the sense that it focuses a little bit more on the actual like performative stuff they do.
There was another important part I forgot to bring up. You have an interest in that upcoming anime called Turkey.
Yeah.
Which I believe is made by the same studio, so you had to do your quality check here. You had to make sure Turkey was in the right hands. The upcoming game-changing bowling slice of life anime.
Bakken Record, very, very fresh studio with very, very little track record. I first heard about them because I randomly saw a thread on 4chan about this announcement for this anime. called Turkey, which is a original anime production about girls playing bowling. Something about the idea of an original anime production about bowling just really got me thinking, wow, I don't know why, but I really want to see this. Bowling is not one of those things you see in anime a lot. That interested me enough, and then I just happened to see they were producing an anime this season. And that's when I ran into Mou Ippon. And I looked at it and I was like, I like the character designs. The character designs are cute. This is like the judo angle is like interesting. I haven't really watched a lot of like judo centric stuff, and it was like a unique show in the winter 2023 catalog. It stood out. That first episode, had some pretty decent animation. But when it looks good, it does look really good, and that was one thing I was impressed about Mou Ippon. It's just like it did have that potential, and it did sometimes have very well animated sequences, especially during the actual judo segments. Well, like it wasn't always at its best, but even at its worst, it wasn't bad. Like I thought the characters were likable. I thought their designs were pretty distinct. I thought it had pretty good storyboarding direction and a good music direction. I thought it had a good visual style that was like unique enough to like stand out. There's a lot of characters in it. They're all very diverse in design and personality, and there's a lot of groups that come together, and the way you see those character dynamics are pretty fun and interesting. The character interactions were definitely one of the best parts, just because of how distinct the characters were. It exceeded my very tempered expectations, so it definitely was better than I was expecting, and I think bowling is in good hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing your anime of the season. It's fucking Onimai. Right away, I was just expecting like it was just gonna be like a dumb, like gag comedy, but it's like the first episode, it had that like animation direction thing going, and since we were like fresh off of like Bocchi the Rock, there was a part of me that was like leaning in towards the screen and being like, no, we're not getting like two of these in a row. Unfortunately, this was not another Bocchi. There wasn't like amazing animation direction through the whole show. It was mainly just the first episode, and then the last episode were very distinctively like the main director was the guy calling the shots on episodes 1 and 12 for the animation. So it's like they do similar things like the rotoscoping, like the wide angle shots where like everyone's moving at the same time.
The first and last episodes definitely have that like I guess the most consistently high quality animation, but there are some episodes where at least a good half of it has pretty high quality animation. The one I always think of is the one where they is like the Christmas one where they all go out. There's like that entire sequence where they're going to see the tree, and a lot of it is like from the perspective of like phone cameras. Like it has a very clever storyboarding and direction where like you're seeing a lot of the action through like phone cameras, and like there's like that whole like sequence with like My Hero doing like the selfie cam, and you could see a lot of the action through it. Like that was really well animated and well directed, and like all of that was very interestingly. There was an interesting flow to it, and it was very smartly put together. There was also I remember there being like a fucking very high quality FPS sequence as well. My hero was coming home. I'm pretty sure he was running towards the bathroom. Yeah, it was like a very well animated like first person sequence.
That was the one thing that stood out to me about Onimai was like the animation direction was like it was very different from like episode to episode. They were always it felt like the way the each episode flowed was like they wanted to do like different things for every single episode, and the pacing felt different, and the way they played off of the characters felt like different on every episode. It was kind of interesting. There's a whole thing from the beginning where it's like it's basically like an isekai in mentality, where it's like we just did this to like add like an extra layer of depth to like the character's thoughts. Unlike isekai shows where that extra layer of thought doesn't work, like I think in like Mushoku Tensei, like the adding on that he was like some loser in his previous life, like it doesn't really add much to the story. But in this one, I think it is doing the whole like gender swap thing where it's like he was a guy, now he's a girl, and he has to learn what it's like to be a girl. It's like it's simple, but it worked. I was thinking this a lot during the show. Like a lot of the show, it feels like Lucky Star. Like they're going for that Lucky Star kind of thing, where he's hanging out with a group of friends and they're doing just girl things and they're just talking about whatever. But they do add that kind of layer where like for extra gags where he'll not realize he's doing something that is like out of the ordinary. Sometimes it's more obvious, like when he's like taking his shirt off in the middle of the class, and he kind of forgets that he's a girl, and the guys are like staring at him and whatever. And then other ones are less subtle, like he's talking about video games, and then the girls aren't. They don't really play the same kind of games.
Yeah, I always love like the scenes with him and like those two guys in his class. I like the one where he goes over there, like he talks about like the JRPG like to them, like because he like wants to talk to someone about the JRPG who like really gets it. So he just like talks to those two guys.
Halfway through the show, my hero like gets, I don't know how, but he somehow gets enrolled back into middle school. So it turns into a school slice of life thing. He's talking about the Dragon Quest with their version of Dragon Quest with the boys, and then he forgets that he's like significantly older than them. So he's talking about
some of the really early entries. Yeah,
he's talking about Dragon Quest 6 specifically, I think. And then they're like, "Oh, that game came out before I was born."
Yeah, that realization.
And my hero's like, "No,
I'm old."
My hero doesn't get like a free excuse to just chat with the guys every time, because it would get boring if it was just the same, like, oh, he has to be a girl and he has to do girl things. But they make it work by just having like this whole the Lucky Star cast of side characters, basically.
I definitely like get what you're saying with the isekai thing, and it's because of that like rehabilitative aspect, right? I do think, yeah, they use that aspect pretty well. It is like that redoing life, but it's also like relearning the things about life that you enjoyed and regaining that perspective and kind of realizing what you need to become like a happier person. It is that kind of like perspective based thing where it's like he is technically the same person in like, I guess, a soul sort of perspective.
His younger sister pretty much just wants to treat him like her younger sister is what's happening here.
She is trying to do that rehabilitation because he's like a NEET.
Yeah, so she cries every time he does anything.
He was not doing well prior to this, from the looks of things. So this is his big reintegration, and he struggles at first, but yeah, you see him go, from not wanting to go outside like at all to just like hanging out with his group at school and outside without any problems at all. And there's that like transferred aspect of him, coming back out of that shell and reintegrating and re-socializing and relearning to establish those human connections, even though it is under this like now kind of female perspective, but it's still like relearning those fundamental things regardless. It's just from a different sort of view. It's a very wholesome show. It's there's a lot of wholesomeness in it. Like I like that relationship between Kaede and Himari, because they never really got to have like a natural high school friendship because of Mihari skipping so many grades and Kaede just being a normal high schooler. So like them having their like cute like makeup sessions and just hanging out together, I always liked that little bit of kind of extra layering to the side characters.
Time to talk about the next season, because that's happening.
It sure is now. Yeah,
even though I haven't watched season 2 yet, I got Konosuba Mega Mean Edition.
Yeah, of course I'm gonna watch that.
It's not my beloved Studio Dean, but it's the same script writer,
right?
So
it's like pretty much the same. A lot of the same staff from Dean is working on this. Like there's a lot of overlaps,
and this is Mega Mean Edition. It's the Mega Mean Edition.
We're getting the Crimson Demon Clan. We're getting all the goofballs in her village. We're getting all the Union lore.
Oshinoko.
Okay.
So I like Kaguya-sama, so naturally this will probably be good too.
Yeah,
Why the hell not?
Oshinoko, I know, I've read a little bit of it, and I know enough about sort of the direction of the premise. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out in an anime form. We got Doga Kobo working on it.
Good old Doga Kobo. When's the last time we ever heard about them doing something?
I used to watch a lot of their stuff, but it's been a hot minute. So this is going to be the first Doga Kobo production I've seen in a while, and it's an interesting one for them to be doing. I really haven't read a lot of it, so I imagine there's going to be a lot of it that I don't even know about. So it'll be interesting to see that either way.
Good old PA Works. They just cannot stop going. They got another one. This time it's a adaptation. Skip and Loafer.
Neither of their usual character designers are working on this one, and I like the way the character designs look based on the preview. They're like simpler and cute in that way. They got that like cute, simple look.
The last one I got listed, which I don't know, it just kind of looked different, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, throw this on here. I don't know what it's called in Japanese, but I have it here as Heavenly Delusion, which is being done by Production IG. When's the last time they did something that wasn't like Attack on Titan that people were like cared about?
Yeah, Tengoku Daimakyo. I'm watching this one very specifically because the mangaka is the same person who did Sorimachi. This is the like exact opposite of Sorimachi in terms of its tone and its premise, because it seems to be a much more serious, kind of dark, like sci-fi dystopian type story. And so there's some like weird ass, like probably like supernatural bent to it as well.
We survived winter 2023 somehow. I didn't mention it before, but yeah, this was not just an ordinarily dry season. This was like a bizarrely like trashy season. It was like a landfill season. It's even if you go back year after year after year through all the seasons of anime, it's hard to find one that's so like lopsided. But yeah, so you'll hear us again in probably like 3 months or something when we talk about the next season.